It covers intermediate in a month. Yeah. And then,
But in class we will. Okay, let's talk about the article. I'm gonna laugh. Why do you laugh?
I was trying to.
Oh, something else.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing about the article.
Okay.
Article is a good reading.
Okay. So what did you guys think? What was your reaction to what you read? So about half of you names I know, about half of you I don't. So if I say I don't know your name, I'm gonna tell me your name.
Okay, I'm Alex.
Alex?
Yeah. Although I overall agreed with the article's position, I disagreed with the way they presented it, since, as he said, that they clearly have like an axe to grind. The way their wording is very strong, and they tend to come across as very anti-calculational. And I didn't see them address any good points about calculational thinking. I may have missed one, so that's entirely possible. But I just felt like it kind of hurts the reliability by doing it that way, since if there's a very overt bias, then I feel like that harms the article's scientific credibility.
Okay, what about the content of the article in terms of things that we talked about? What did you guys, other reactions?
I liked it. It made sense.
Is it Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was funny is because I think most of us were taught calculational rather than conceptual. And it said in there that people that were taught calculational will get annoyed or like tired of hearing the conceptual like explanations, like dragging it out.
Okay.
And like I've seen that in classes like that one where we had to do the pre-calculus class. Like we're just like, why don't we just compute it right away? Like we know how to do this.
Okay.
Because you do the thinking in your head rather than like reasoning through it out loud.
Okay. So what pre-calculus class are you talking about?
MTE 483 or something like that.
The one we had to do last semester. But,
Okay.
Like, he wasn't in it.
So you're in it this semester?
No, I took it last semester.
You took it last semester?
No.
No, not this semester.
I think your
We
name
took
was
it
Underwood.
last
This is the professor, I think.
I think did you do it a year ago?
I don't know. Hopefully.
So you're talking about pathways?
Yeah.
Okay. So right, so if a student has a calculational orientation in their thinking, then these questions are going to become very exasperating very quickly, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Okay, other comments, reactions? Tell me your name.
I'm Lauren.
Lauren.
I mean, I do agree with him in that is the way that we were taught, but I think now that the classroom is more trying to go the other way and more of the conceptual thinking instead of just computing direct calculations. And so more of the students we're going to be teaching are going to be in that kind of realm and not so much in calculational. So we have to adapt now to that before we go out and teach our students. So.
Okay, so how many of you are in or have had an internship or student teaching? Okay, so Lauren kind of made a conjecture there that more students coming up through the system are being trained more in a conceptual orientation. So are you finding that in your internships and student teaching? Is that in terms of what you're experiencing personally?
Hi, I'm Laura.
Laura.
I actually am placed in a calculus class this semester, and I was there last week, and one of the kids, the teacher posed a question, and the answer that he responded with was so just a high level of thinking that I was actually blown away. Like, I would not have responded that way.
Okay.
I would have gone towards a calculational way of saying it, and he just went into like this whole explanation, a very like conceptual way of explaining it, and I was very taken back.
Okay.
So I think she's right in the fact that it really, like, kids are starting to think in a more conceptual way, or maybe the more high level end.
Melissa.
I haven't seen it as much in my internships with the lower high school aged students, but with my own kids helping out in their classrooms and stuff, just the way that they're starting now in like first and second grade all the way up to like fifth and sixth grade, they answer much differently than the high school students do, and they think about it much more in a conceptual way. So when those ones get to high school that we're going to be teaching in the next 5 years, it's going to be a huge difference with how the classes work.
Okay, good. So some of you are experiencing more conceptual thinking in the younger kids.
In my internship and in my job, I worked with about 10 different teachers, and it's really dependent on the teacher whether or not they're calculational or conceptual. Because right now, I have 4 or 5 teachers who are very conceptual, and this is how you work it out, and this is the reason why, and I'm not worried about your calculations. Go ahead and just use a calculator. But I have other teachers who are more like, no, this is the process by which you need to do this so that you can find your answer. So I think a lot of it has to do with the experience of the teacher as well as their preference.
Sorry.
For my first internship, I was in, I think, Kyrene district, and like they were really pushing for conceptual, like orientation and stuff. And my mentor teacher absolutely despised it. She would always complain about it and be like, "No, I just want to teach them like the calculations and the steps." And like she still would ask them questions relating to it, but it was kind of like how teacher one would be like, "Well, what does that number mean?" and then just kind of keep going past it. And she was just like really upset that they were kind of making her try and change her way of thinking.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of calculational orientation out there. A lot. Lee.
It's still sort of calculational, but I ran into a situation where my teacher was told that they needed to teach a different way to add, and she just hosed it down. She even brought up in front of the kids that it's kind of dumb that they were being forced to do this. But after a while, adding that way, she realized that they had merit. So we have a lot of times where we're told, here's a new way of doing it, and they just want to smother it.
So let me ask you this. Going back to Alex's comment at the beginning. So is a computational orientation better in your view? And if so, why?
Sorry. Well, they both have merit. Computational, I think, in the high school level makes more sense because the kids now are getting more conceptual math at a younger age. That you can kind of focus more on the computational part of it. But I think it's also just as important that the students know why they're doing something.
Okay. So obviously this article is putting forth that it's much an advantage to have a conceptual orientation and have students who have that. But do you believe it, and why? Michael?
The only con I have for it is that it takes a lot more time, where calculational, you're like, if you know the steps and you know what you're finding, you can do it quickly. Where like in that thing, the discussion in the first one ended was only like a page long, and the other one was like 2.5 pages of them talking. So that's like one of the cons is just how much time it takes.
I think if you're given, like in a situation where you're given an equation, a calculational equation, you can get your answer through the process, but if you're not given that equation, can you conceptually think of it? Like, do you understand what that equation stands for? Do you understand what to use in order to get that equation? Like, can you build it off your own? I think that's a big, huge pro of conceptual is you're going to understand the meaning behind the situation and how to form your equations instead of just kind of going through the steps to get it done.
What is the end goal of mathematics education? What are we trying to achieve with students? What outcome do we want for them? What's that? To be able to reason. Okay.
Application in multiple areas, I think that's what I want to be able to do is not just have a kid come to my class, go through the steps, do that, but be able to apply it in anything, being able to just, even with logic, being able to support their argument correctly, even if it's not, because if they don't learn exactly, well, even just showing your work, build something into them to where they have to be able to support themselves through everything. So I don't know, just being able to apply to multiple, whether it's the arts, sciences, anything, being able to apply what they learn in my class.
Okay, so that it's useful and relevant.
A universal methodology to their thinking. That's what I want.
And then you also mentioned reasoning, which is what Gina said. So that they can reason and use logic, and that we have something that they can have something useful and relevant to apply. What do you think our goals are as math educators? Someone who hasn't spoken up yet. Tell me your name.
Crystal.
Crystal.
To be able to take some sort of problem that may or may not seem to be related to math and break it down into mathematical concepts in order to shed light on the problem or find some way to solve it.
Yeah, problem solving, right? And so what do we mean by problem solving? Being able to do a procedure like one that they've seen before? To be a problem solver means like the opposite of that, right? To be a problem solver means you come to a new situation and you have the tools to unfold it and look all around the different sides of it and answer all kinds of questions, not just a specific question, getting a specific answer, but kind of unfolding a situation with mathematical tools to completely understand it and be able to talk about it. So if these things are our goal, then there's no question that we want our students to have a conceptual orientation of mathematics. And what percentage of students who have a conceptual orientation toward mathematics do you think are good at the calculational side of mathematics? Do you think it's a high percentage or a low percentage? High. Naturally, students that understand concepts, there's going to be no problem with the calculational side of things. What about the other way around? Students have a calculational. What percentage of them have a high conceptual? Oh, right. So they're just going to be locked in this completing the steps, not understanding, right? Not understanding. Right. Okay. So how about the discussion questions? Teaching is a cultural act. So whatever immediate external pressures on teachers one to teach the way she did, if you took away those pressures, he or she would probably teach the same way. What's your reaction to that statement? That teaching mathematics is a cultural act. Yeah, Tyler.
I think they would probably still teach in the same way. One is because what they're used to teaching computational methodology. And moving outside of that comfort zone where they've been taught that way, that's why they've been teaching. So moving outside of that would be a very difficult move for most people to change the way that they've been thinking about mathematics their entire lives.
Yeah, maybe we should have just briefly just kind of brainstorm. What kind of pressures might this be talking about?
Resources and stuff, like they said in the book or in the reading, that you can't really follow common textbooks and like other teachers might not have resources for you, so you have to do a lot of extra like curriculum planning to do conceptual. So that might make
this is talking about teacher one. So what kind of pressures might there be on teacher one? Yeah. What's your name? Winona. Yeah, like some standardized stuff. Like you got to get through the material so the students are ready for the test. What other pressures might?
The way they were taught when they were in school.
Okay, what pressures are on them, causing them to do certain things, teach the way they do?
Time crunch, so like only having 55 minutes or so to teach, and then on top of that, having maybe a video camera in the room recording them during their teaching because they were being analyzed. Okay,
so time, tests, so maybe people are watching them, they're being viewed, yeah.
I think it also has a lot to do with what school you're at too, and the administration, and they set a lot of the ways that they want you to teach, and this is what they want done, and you can't stray from that if that's what your principal tells you.
Right, so you're in an environment where there's standards and protocols of how you teach and what you teach, right? So so this question is getting at, when you take all those things away, so suppose teacher one didn't have to prepare their students for what do they call in Arizona? Ames, right? So the teacher didn't have to prepare them for Ames, didn't have to follow a particular textbook. They could choose their own text. Didn't have to go along with the other teachers and the administrators in the school. So complete freedom. So the question is, would that teacher then teach differently than what you saw in that vignette? Do you believe? Lots of no's. Still right. So yeah. Okay. So the point is, it's not about those pressures. That's not what causes the calculational orientation to teaching. It's not about these limits that we have around us as teachers, but it's about, what is it about? So where does that, if it doesn't come from the external pressures, where is the calculational orientation coming from? Molly?
I think it's coming from comfort, like just it's what they're used to, it's what they enjoy doing, and to for those teachers to switch over to conceptual, like it would put a lot of work into it, and just kind of comes down to like what they're like what they've already been doing. It's
right. So
easier.
it's what they're used to. Alex said it's the way they were taught, right? Yeah.
Carla, I just think some of them don't even really know like the mathematics very conceptually themselves.
Right.
So they wouldn't even be able to if they wanted to.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So so as a teacher, if you're going to teach conceptually, you have to have a deep understanding and a well-rounded understanding of the mathematics in a conceptual way, right? For that to come through in your teaching. Yeah. So what determines who you are as a teacher is not so much about these classes that you're taking in college, but a lot more about the way you were taught the last 20 years of your life, right? That's going to be the determinant, right? So if you can identify some of the negative things in the way that you were taught, calculationally or other cultural aspects, so we're doing our best to identify those and see if we can improve and change course, right? Change course. All right, so how can someone have a very good mathematical understanding and still teach with a calculational orientation? It seems easy if they just were deliberate, right? If they're deliberate about it. Any comments about number 2?
Thinking, well, if you have a strong mathematical understanding, or a really strong conceptual understanding of mathematics, things might seem easy to you, and you might just hurry through it, when even though your students don't get it necessarily. And so that's kind of where I was thinking it would turn into calculational.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Tori.
The way I was thinking was like, it doesn't matter like how good you are at the subject area if you don't know how to teach it. And so like, you could be like the most amazing math person in the entire world, but like if you don't understand how to teach it to other people, it's not even that like beneficial to be like a teacher with it.
Yeah, and then there's an issue even before how to teach it. What's the other issue? So we've got the most amazing genius, right, in mathematics. So there's something that's even before a method that might still cause a calculational orientation. What would that be? Yeah, Melissa.
I think just your own kind of personality and how you think anyway. Are you a big picture concept type person, or are you a very detailed, procedural type person? That's going to kind of drive, no matter how you were taught or how you learned it or how you want to teach it, you can still kind of fall back on that.
Right.
I feel like there could be teachers that don't want to frustrate their students and like cause them to doubt themselves, when really that's how they figure it out on their own.
Right. So you want to kind of stay away from those emotional experiences that students have, because that's going to happen at first, right? When you're trying to teach that way. Yes, it's about goals, right? So you could be a genius, like Tori said, but if you don't have the goal to help your students to learn with meaning, if that's not the goal, then you can just teach the steps, right? Make it a nice, happy place, and and everyone gets it, can follow the procedure. No problems. All right. What about how someone with a very weak or superficial mathematical understanding will have difficulty teaching with a conceptual orientation. What were your thoughts on number 3? So now, if you have a very weak, I think we mentioned this before. So, that's what Gina said? Said this. Comments on number 3. Explain how someone with a very weak or superficial math understanding would have difficulty teaching with a conceptual orientation. Sarah?
Well, to me, conceptual orientation means that, like, you have to have knowledge of the entire situation and everything that goes into it. And if you don't have knowledge of all of those parts, then you can't really teach everything about it. You can't explain it well for the students to really grasp what
Right. So
how
this
it's being used.
is the very essence of a conceptual orientation. Is that you get it in a deep way. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's pretty obvious.
Yes.
Okay. Other comments, reactions, anything you want to comment about in this article? Okay. And so, in terms of using technology and visualization, the framework for using that is always about helping students understand and develop a conceptual orientation. That's what we'll be all about in terms of why we're using technology and why we're making visualizations. Okay. How about, should we go through let's go through how did the number 3 go, or question number 2. So question number 2. Let's see if I can find that easily. What would that be under? Which would have been your 3rd GC file. How did this go? Is it worth going over, discussing, talking about? So I think, so in this question, the idea was take this formula and make a function out of it in GC. Was that right? So if we wanted to do that, let's see, let's just go ahead and do it. This is really small. Still too small. Okay, so I just typed F. Does this stand for function?
No.
What is graphing calculator? But no, right now, what is graphing calculator thinking?
It's a variable.
Yeah, it's a variable or a parameter, right? And by default, they haven't defined what its value is, so it's 1. So with the control 9. Okay. And then how many were there? 4? Let's see. So it looks like, and then does the order matter here? Nope. So it's up to us here to create this function. So we'll just go with the order that I see them here. So capital P. What's next? Capital R. Capital N. Capital M. Is that it? And so this is function notation. We have actually 4 inputs, right, into this function named f. And we want to define it as, we're defining the output as this thing. Almost got it. How did I do? Looks good? And it looks like you, first of all, you use the functions just to find some values of b. Okay? And so let's look at that first row of the table. So how can I use you learn this by reading pages 3 and 4. How can I represent this value of b right here? So I don't want to find its value, but now that I define the function f, how can I represent that value of b? How can I represent that value of b? A few hands. Alex, what do you think?
I would say like f of 0.055 or whatever order it is.
Uh-huh.
What those numbers in.
So I did p first, so you're saying you want
275 followed by 3 zeros.
Okay.
Comma 0.055 comma 100 comma 1561 142.
Okay. So f of 275. So without this answer, is this expression a valid expression? So it calculated something for us, but without that number, is this valid? What I've highlighted. Valid for what? Alfredo, what do you think? What I've highlighted there. Is it valid without what it's equal to as a final value?
I don't know, do you mean like valid as in where you put it in the equation?
So what I mean, does it have purpose and meaning and significance without its calculated value?
Yes.
Okay, so explain to me how. How does it have purpose, meaning, significance by itself? What I've highlighted. Lee.
So this is the remaining balance. We have a principal of $275,000 at a rate of 5.5%, with 100 payments, each of which is $15.61.
Right. So what does his response reflect about the validity of that? So what's that? Okay, because the function you defined. Okay, but so you see how much meaning it had? So he said a whole sentence of meaning. So there's meaning to this, right? It's a remaining balance when all these things are in place, right? Or when all these values are such. Okay. Cool. So then you had to graph the remaining balance as a function of what? Number of payments, and that's our capital N. So in order to call for a graph, so notice we didn't get any graph here, right? Why didn't we get a graph in graph calculator for this function? Why didn't we graph this function? Why? Right, so as a function of affordability, that would be a 5-dimensional graph, first of all, right? But yeah, so if we want an XY or Cartesian plane graph, then we're gonna have to tell it Y or X. Okay, so what is our Y? Okay, remaining balance, which we know remaining balance is the function, and as a function of what? So 100,000 is going to be fixed, right? Rate is what? Okay. So we want our number of payments to be our independent variable displayed on the x-axis, and m is? Okay, and, well, it gave me a graph, but didn't give me anything. Okay, so, do I want to zoom out on x, y, or both? Now just y. How about our graph? Is it complete or? Well, so by complete, I don't want to mean you have to get it to look exactly the same. But so, in a real world sense, is there anything left to do with our graph? Yeah. Okay, how do you want to change the domain? Okay. So in a graphing sense, you won't be able to tell the difference, right? So whether you put less than or less than or equal to, you won't be able to see the difference. But can x be 0? Does it make sense for x to be 0? All right. Well, then let's do that. Okay. And is there a maximum value x would make sense to be? 60. Okay, questions, comments on this exercise? Okay, so this idea of functions is not just something else we can put in the algebra and calculus curriculum to have problems to do. Function and function notation is incredibly powerful, and we're going to see it all semester long. If you have a good conception of function and function notation, it is going to make your life so much easier when you're writing these animations. And hopefully, over the semester, you'll develop that appreciation. That it's not just another set of problems to do, function problems, right? That it's super powerful. And when you're making advanced animations, if you structure them based around functions and use function notation, it saves you a lot of energy and makes makes what you've written a lot more efficient. Okay, so it's about efficiency and ease. Okay, so let's just want to do one thing. I'm about to use this with my calculus class, but it fits with what we're talking about. I find it. So get out a sheet of paper, or your notes, whatever. So talking about functions, and we're going to see how they play a huge part in creating animations. The distance a motorcycle travels from an intersection in miles is a function of the time elapsed since leaving the intersection in minutes. Okay, you ready? So I want you to write down, not what you think I want you to write down, or what anything. What I want you to write down is exactly what came to mind, or what comes to mind as you look at this expression. What do you think when you look at this? What do you see, and what do you think? Just be honest. Don't try to write down what you think I want you to write down. Okay. Okay, let's have us share what the different thoughts were. Chris, what'd you think?
Well, I'm representing G of X when the X is 8.3 and it's going to be put into some type of function or something, something like that.
So, say it again now.
I'm thinking that that's going to be put into something for it to be calculated to grab something from the distance.
So something's going to be put in to be calculated?
Yes.
Okay.
To graph the distance of the motorcycle.
And that's a graph.
Okay.
So there's two different things, right? You're saying you saw a calculation.
Yes.
In order to make a graph.
Yes.
A calculation in order to make a graph. Okay. So when that whole thing to you is the time elapsed since the motorcycle left the intersection. Okay.
The distance the motorcycle is from the intersection after 8.3 minutes.
So that was what you thought. You looked at that and you thought this is the distance the motorcycle is from the intersection at 8.3 minutes. Okay. What else be honest.
Some variable G multiplied by 8.3.
G times 8.3. Okay? What else did you think? I don't think we really thought that.
Those two different things that are
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is different stuff. Okay. Other things, yeah.
I said G is a function of 8.3.
G is a function of 8.3. G is a function of 8.3.
First thing that came to mind is where the motorcycle's at.
That means where the motorcycle is at. That whole thing means where the motorcycle is at.
That's what came to mind.
Okay? I'm repeating all these for the recording. I want to make sure that we get it on the recording. This is great stuff. Okay, what else? What else want to offer? What's your thought?
The distance from the intersection that the motorcycles traveled in miles after an elapsed time of 8.3 minutes since leaving the intersection.
Okay, and that's what you thought when you looked at it.
Yeah.
She said the distance from the intersection in miles, 8.3 minutes after the motorcycle left the intersection.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else want to offer up what you thought? Okay, so great conversation. Cool. When you see an expression like this, the goal is that you conceive it as three things harmoniously, in harmony. Okay, this is the goal. So we're all in different places in terms of what we thought when we saw this, but here we all want to converge. This is where we all converge to. Okay, and this is similar to what some of you said. 8.3 is the input. This is the first part of this. Of what the first of three parts. 8.3 is the input. In this case, that's a number of minutes. Okay. Into a function whose name is g. Into a function whose name is g, resulting in an output of g of 8.3, which in this case is a number of miles. Thoughts about that? What do you think? How does this relate to the article and our discussion with the article? Yeah, Michael.
You understand like what each part of it is, like 8.3. You know in your head that that's like an input of the number of units.
Okay.
And the output, you know what that's going to actually represent.
Okay.
Like knowing what each thing represents is basically.
Okay, and how does that relate to the article?
Because the conceptual way it said that like they have a better understanding of what each part of the problem is.
Okay. Other comments how this relates to the article? Yeah, Lee.
So this is not computational because it doesn't have the other half of the equation. So it's not g of 8.3 equals, and then somehow describing what you gotta do with it.
Okay.
It's just that left-hand side of the equation.
Right. Other comments? Okay, here's a function defined as 3x squared plus 8x minus 17. Same exercise. Go. What came to mind when this expression appeared? Write down exactly what you thought. Okay. What do you guys think?
Output value of f for input 2.
What's that?
Output value of f for input 2.
Output.
Output value of f for input 2.
Output value of f for input 2. That's what you thought. Okay. Correct.
Well, I just thought it was to put the 2 into the actual equation and say that's your output.
Put the 2 into the equation and say that's your output.
And then the same 2 is your input, and then f is your function.
Okay.
When x equals 2, then the function f equals 11.
Okay. So when f equals 2, the function f equals 11. Does it?
Yeah.
I was saying it too, man. Okay. So, but when you looked at that, and you thought that the output was 11.
Well, when x equals 2, so you plug x into
So you're thinking plug 2 in for x. Okay. Other comments? All right. So yeah. The output when the input is 2. Okay. So is this example different or the same as the previous example? Same or different? Oh, we got both. So it's those who are saying same, or those who are saying different. So make your case. Some are saying same, some are saying different. Alternative.
I said different because when I saw this, I thought I want to plug it in and find the answer. Whereas in the other one, I just looked at it and I wrote down that 8.3 is the number of minutes since the intersection. So I looked more, not towards an answer, but just what it was.
Okay.
When
So
I was trying to find an answer.
you thought about it differently.
Yeah.
Your thoughts were different about it. Okay, and then your conclusion, therefore, it is different. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I thought it was the same because they both had an input and they both had a function. Just the other one was just g, so they both had the same.
Alex.
I would say different since there's no context provided behind this one, and that's
Okay.
something that conceptual orientation is trying to emphasize more, that we have context behind the numbers that we're plugging in.
Different in the fact that in the whole situation, there's no context. But so my question is more about the g of 8.3 versus the f of 2.
Well, and so I would say it's different since it's going to be, the output is just going to be a number for this, where with no context or anything, and the output for the other one is going to be representative of something.
Okay.
I was gonna kind of say that too. The last one, I was looking at meaning behind the value, and this one I was looking to solve the value.
Okay. some of you guys feel that when I put the f of 2, it was like calculate, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, all right, good. So 2 is the input to a function whose name is f, resulting in an output of f of 2. So in essence, it is the same. I mean, we can compare it. So I framed it differently, right? I framed it differently. There's no application here. There's no real world situation. I gave you the rule of the function. But the meaning of this notation, exactly the same. This is the output of the function f when the input is 2. Okay. So this is still under construction. So it was where you talk about function notation in calculus. I'm going to go on with this and maybe have some like f of a or f of a equals a value and see what comes to mind from past experience. So any comments, suggestions as I continue to refine this little teaching tool? What's that? You like it? What do you like about it though?
Kind of makes you realize.
Reveals.
Even though people like you said it was, some people might have thought it was different, and I realized it was actually the same.
Okay.
You have this one where it's all computational, and then you have the conceptual, like giving a real world example. But I think what would help maybe is just putting up just f of whatever, because most kids that have gotten to this level of education, at least, have had algebra, so it's where they know what that means in a equation form. Like that means I have to plug something in.
In a calculational sense.
Right. So maybe just having f of 2 with nothing. What does this mean? And maybe it'll ring harder to them.
But then it doesn't reveal their calculational orientation. So that was my whole point.
Okay.
Was to get you in this frame of mind to reveal that there is this thing about this means to do something, rather than it just has a meaning. You see? And so if I didn't put that first, then then you could just apply what you applied on the last screen. But my point is, when you're in this mindset and you see that, are you thinking of it as a calculation, or can you just see it as the way we saw it on the previous screen? So that's other.
I guess one metaphor you could possibly use is that they both have the same foundation, even if they're like different buildings on top of it, or something to that extent. Because it's kind of how I'm reading it. Where it's like, so even if they are boiling down to the same, their meanings are significantly different.
Okay. Lauren.
Would you get a different response if you flipped the two scenarios? If you started with this one, and they're like, "Oh, I can calculate that," but then you flip to the other one, they're like, "I can't solve this." Do you think that would make a difference?
Yeah. So I did. This was intentional.
The order.
Yeah, the order was very intentional to see if even after I explain what G of 8, we go through what G of 8.3 is. So now we have this. The harmony of the 3 parts, right?
Yeah.
You see all 3 parts. Now, if I give you this, can you see it that way, or are you still? That was intentional. Yeah. Because I think going the other way, you make your point here, and then it's going to the other one without the equation. There's a much easier transfer. But this way, the whole intent is tended to reveal a calculational orientation. That's the whole point. And if that worked even after you had an example of it, then it really reveals it. That was my thinking behind it. Okay, so let's bring this into Graphing Calculator. So here's this is kind of an activity that's like a guided activity where you're learning more features of Graphing Calculator, but it's in this realm of functions and the meaning of functions and the meaning of function notation. So it's all relevant. So as you're getting started, this whole packet is taking you through and teaching you things in order to build an animation at the end, and I'm going to put that animation up in a second here. You can start reading it, start working on it. So this will be due, so when's next time? I'll see you Tuesday, right? So
packet filled in? Or
Yeah, the packet filled in, and also then I'll send you an email, and you're going to send me back your file with the final product. So you can read that, get oriented while I pull up the file.
So like if this is our homework, what do we do for like question 2 where it's asking for like a sentence explaining something?
So you're going to both turn in this packet with all the answers filled in, and then you're also going to send me a GCF file. You'll as you read it, you'll understand. You're building. It will take you through building a file as you go, and then you're going to send me that by email. So it's both. And you can discuss and work together on this in the rest of the time today. No, that was easy. I thought that would be harder to find. So here's that function defined, okay? In the first line. So all the rest of the guts of this GCF file are below the graph, underneath the graph, and that's what is going to lead you through building it, okay? And then the result is an animation where you graph the attendance as a function of temperature. And then I talked a little bit about sliders. You're going to learn this lowercase n. Whenever you type lowercase n, it automatically will pop up what's called this built-in slider underneath the graph, which allows you to manually change the value of n. Okay? And so any place you use n in your command lines, it's going to apply the current value of n. Okay? It's going to apply the current value of n to any command lines that have an n in them. And so in this particular file, as you change n, it changes the location of, or it changes the value of, so basically n is the value of x, the temperature, okay? So n is the temperature, and you have a point. You have the corresponding point of temperature and attendance, and then you're showing is that 10 degree? You're showing it, not only are you showing the current value of n along with the expected attendance as a point, but then you're showing a change, an increase in temperature of 10, and whatever the corresponding increase in the temperature would be for that increase in temp. And then that all changes as you change n. So this is the final product of the packet. And so you're applying your knowledge of functions and you're learning about graph and calculator all together. We can work together. I can walk around and help you. What is going on here? What is going on here? Is it Melissa? Is that right? No, you're Melissa. You're Crystal. Sorry.
Your input
Okay, but what's going on here? Okay, so yeah, to get to correct graph, one thing is there. But what's happening here? What's happening?
Just T set to 1, so isn't it just plugging in 1 into your
Okay, he said T is set to be 1. So aren't you just plugging 1 into A of T?
Yeah.
So what is it graphing then? It's graphing
the constant when T is 1.
constant what when T is 1? Is it y equals 1?
Y equals the output of A of T.
The output of A of T when
T is 1.
the input is 1. Right, so in this line, T is the parameter that has the default value of 1. It's using the function that we've defined here, plugging 1 in and getting a value, and plotting y equals that value. Is capital T equal 1 up here?
No.
What does capital T mean in this statement? Yeah, so in the definition of a function, that's a placeholder. Okay, so it's different. It's interpreting capital T different in these two lines. Here it's a placeholder. You're saying, okay, this is going to be, you're going to look for these in my rule. And anytime you see these in the rule, whenever you use that function, it's going to do the same thing. So what would happen if I changed these all to U's? If I changed all those to U's, what would be the same or different?
Same.
It'd be finding the same function even though I used U instead of T. And I'm invoking the same function with capital T equals. What would capital T equal then? If I had all U's up here. Still be 1. Capital T would still be 1. It's invoking the same function just with a different symbol for the placeholder. So we want to plug in all values of x into A and graph them. So we need x. If you plug in, if you do capital T, then in that line it's a parameter 1. Okay, so part of your homework will be to finish this packet written and respond with your file that does what I showed you. There may be more homework too, okay? And then I'll look on Blackboard. So I'll see you Tuesday, right? Have a wonderful extended weekend.